So we are in chapter 2, the book Heaven and Hell. Chapter 2 is the fear of death. So Leo, would you like to please read the cause of the fear of death and the explanation?
Okay. Causes of the fear of death. Number 1. Ever since they lived in the wild, and whatever their social position may now be, human beings have had an innate sentiment about the future. Intuition tells them that death is not the final phase of existence, and that those whose loss we grieve are not irretrievably lost. Belief in the future life is intuitive and infinitely more widespread than the belief in nothingness. Nevertheless, how can one explain that among those who believe in the immortality of the soul, one still finds a great attachment to earthly things and a huge fear of death?
Can you comment this first paragraph?
Yeah, I find it interesting when it says here that belief in future life is more widespread than the belief in nothingness. And that's true, but that's something that people who don't believe in anything use against any sort of faith by saying that, that we create something, that we make something up because we need to believe in something. And I really believe a lot in intuition and in the common threads that we have between all cultures, that they represent creation in a very similar way if you look at the Bible and other cultures. And I think that there is something behind that per se doesn't explain everything, but that put in context with everything that we learn here it helps us to understand why human beings are different to other animals. They understand that there is a future.
Leo, if I may say, I think we could go to the last paragraph of chapter 1, where it says that when you prove what comes after death, then people stop believing in anything. They're free to believe, to create an illusion. But once we have the proof that Spiritism brought through the study of the messages, compiling the teachings, then you have a system where you can study, you can look at facts, not just, suppositions, theories, facts, especially as Kardec says here in this last paragraph, they are material because the spirits were manifesting on a material level. So you can't deny that, as he says, right before your eyes. And then you have an explanation that makes sense. So people slowly should stop believing in anything as future life and start to understand what is the message from the spirits telling us about this future life. And I think this book, Heaven and Hell, the purpose is exactly that. And Kardec says, I think you missed that point. Kardec says that this is the first point that we unite all sects, the various sects. Because, so I think that's why, people start believing in so many things, because until now, or until Kardec's time, there wasn't a good, robust explanation for life after death. Then you would, create your own. But instinctively, people had this, idea that, yes, there must be something. And then you choose whatever you want. So I like that, or I like this. But now, if you read the books, Spiritist books, and then you see, and it makes sense, it can be explained, it can be proved, you start to not only believe, you say, yes, I know it is like that. It's not a question of believing or, it's a certainty.
Also, we have to bear in mind that mediumship has been around always. So perhaps it wasn't as widespread, as frequent as in the times of Kardec, 1850s onwards. That was part of the plan, but it's been around. So I remember talking to, I forgot his name, in Poland, the guy who's there, the spiritist guy, and he said in the mountains near Krakow, in the south of Poland, people thought it was common to talk to their late relatives, but they were Catholic, but they thought that was a normal thing. So in a way, that people pass that on to future generations, and you have that in every culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned that, this information is here for a long time, but it was fragmented. You would receive in your small group and keep to yourself. Some people perhaps wouldn't even register that. They would just receive verbally the information. What Kardec did was he got all the information, all these messages from all over the world, compiled them. That was exactly what was lacking, compiling the information and presenting them in this very well-structured way with a methodology. Kardec, in terms of methodology, he is impeccable. He is 100%, I would say, rigorous in the way he uses this methodology. And that's what lacked. But if you go back and you start to do his work with previous messages from other times, other groups around the world, you'll see that, oh, yes, here they talk about this. Yeah. Oh, there they had already talked about this. And then you see that, yes, he was right. You just increase your sample. You go just, further than the group that Kardec got the messages from to compile. And then you see, yes, yeah, it's there.
Wonderful. Liz, would you like to comment as well?
Yeah, I'd like to say that in this particular lifetime of mine, with my dad, my son, and my brother passing over in quick succession, it was only through Spiritism that I was able to know, rather than just believe, that, yeah, there's no reason to fear death. It helped me with my grief. All the messages from the spirits, all the books written through the spirits, with the spirits, everything that Alan Kardec has, put together with such copious works, enabled me to have that incontrovertible proof. And then through mediumship, through hearing, through many mediums, my son speak, even through just recently my daughter especially, there was no way I couldn't believe that, we are eternal, everyone is okay, and only Spiritism gave me that.
Wonderful, Liz, wonderful, really wonderful. Munir, would you like to read this number 2 and we explain? And we start.
Okay. 2. This fear is an effect of the wisdom of providence and the consequence of the self-preservation instinct common to all living beings. Such fear is necessary as long as people are not sufficiently enlightened about the conditions of the future life. Fear acts as a counterweight to the tendency which, without its restraining force, would lead us to prematurely leave our life behind and neglect the earthly labor that must serve for our advancement. Thus, it is that among primitive peoples, the future is a vague intuition, which later becomes a simple hope and finally a certainty, albeit still attenuated by a secret attachment to corporeal life.
Wonderful.
We see the progress here. As we evolve, our intellectual side evolves, our moral side evolves, we have a different perception, and we move from a vague idea to a certainty.
Wonderful.
Yeah, the fear is part of our sort of animal instinct, because if you didn't have fear, and you see children, for example, they jump from a window, they're babies, they don't know. So fear works as a deterrent, which is important. And of course, when that becomes excessive, then it becomes a phobia, which is an irrational fear. But I remember an account from Janet Duncan, saying that when she was a child, she drowned in a beach in South England, in the south here, and she was 7 or 8, and she saw like a balloon. She saw herself just going up and up, and she could see everyone around her body. And she said, "I never felt so good." And then she saw those, Janet. Then she saw those spirits coming. She said, "No, please, don't make me come back. No." And they just said, "Yes, you have to come." Yeah, and then she said, "I felt so good, So probably people who were there, "Oh, poor girl," and all that. And she said, she didn't feel anything. She just went up, and they said, "No, you have to go back." I mean, now we know that happened to show her, to prove her the existence of spiritual life, because she would need that later in life. But yeah, so in many ways, when we see the material, we see the body, we feel that, but the spirit doesn't go through the same pain.
Yeah, you see, fear is necessary, at least at our level, as they say here, because fear will make us alert of the situation, but fear shouldn't deter us, shouldn't prevent us from doing things. If you need to go into the jungle, you have to fear the dangers that exist in the jungle, but you should prepare yourself to face them and not go backwards or, "Oh, I don't want to go into the jungle because I fear this. I don't want to go into the ocean because my boat might sink, or so we don't do anything." No, we should go, but go in a very careful way, prepared for any, to have a contingency plan.
A wonderful study. So we leave forward to next week, and I will stop the recording here now. Okay. Stop the recording. Okay. Stop share.